So in the West, we liked Gorbachev. You know, he seemed like he was going to really change the Soviet Union with glasnost and perestroika, you know, economic restructuring, openness. And there was even, you know, this ban on vodka, which I wanted to ask you about and how that went. Yeah. I heard that there was a potato shortage that followed that because they were making vodka in their bathtubs to replace the vodka that wasn't on the shelves. But what was the impression of Gorbachev? And I'm wondering if that kind of paved the way for, we need to go back to when we were strong. You know, I've talked to Vladan about this before too, this kind of longing for the old powerful Soviet Union when everyone felt, you know, it maybe affected people on an individual level because they felt they were part of a strong nation. So I wondered if either one of you could speak to that.
Well, what I can tell from my experience, well, you know, I was, when Gorbachev became a leader, so we're talking like, what, 85, 84, somewhere there? Yeah. I was like 13, 14. So I was the perfect age. I was excited about changes. I was at that point when I started kind of noticing, you know, bad parts of living in socialism. So for me, it was always, you know, there was a lot of excitement those years. I wasn't into drinking, so it didn't bother me that vodka disappeared. Of course, there was a lot of dark humor about all that. And, you know, it created, you know, that anti-alcohol campaign, besides moonshining, and also that's what started drug abuse. Before that, was hardly any drugs. People pretty much drink vodka, or, you know, beer, wine, whatever. It's the shortage of alcohol that's created as young people went. Like in Ukraine, we always grew poppies. You may, you know, for baking, you know, poppy seeds. Never had issues that, like, you can grow poppies. It was just never even thought. And then in the end of 80s, that's when it became like you can grow anything because people snuck at night at your garden and they cut every poppies to make, you know, heroin. So that was the side effect. And of course, it was a huge impact on the budget of Russia, of Soviet Union, because state had monopoly of making alcohol. So by cutting down production, the revenue dropped drastically. But generally, like, I remember it was finally interesting to read newspapers. It was finally interesting to watch TV. Like, end of 80s, there was so much excitement just because it was like, we didn't know which newspapers to subscribe. They all publishing something about Stalin and about, you know, World War II. All this information we couldn't hear before. So that was a lot of excitement. But of course, after collapse, and then it was quite ugly early 90s. And so there is quite a bit of people, as you mentioned, they do miss, you know, everyone respected us kind of. We had Soviet Union, we were a world power. And this is really bizarre part, this mentality of former Soviets. This is kind of flushed out of my brain. Many people remain it. They would prefer to go to outhouse and wipe their butts with newspaper, but knowing the fact that we have the best nuclear missile in the world. You know, it's such a disconnect that I'm looking back. For me, it was totally normal. Like, I lived in Kiev, so, you know, like second biggest city in the Soviet Union, third after Moscow and Leningrad. But I drive in the village to stay with my grandparents, and it's literally like at least 50 years back or 75. People still use horses to plow fields, no running water, no, pretty much like my grandparents didn't have a refrigerator. They used cellar, outhouse, getting water in the well, borrowing horse from the collective farm to plow the field. So for me, it was totally normal. You just go out of town and it's like Amish country. But we were first in space, and we all were proud of it. So I totally accepted these two opposite realities of being so advanced in some areas that made everyone proud. And then everyone lives really like basic in the country, especially. So a lot of people still, they, like in Russia, they totally don't mind having dirt roads that you can barely pass in the spring. But they're so proud that Putin went to Syria to help a Syrian leader, because in Syria, it's really important for Russia to protect our interests. I was like, do you see your roads? Like, who cares what's going on in Syria? You know, but people don't mind. There's a lot of people like that. They have that, they want that pride, and they don't mind to suffer. Like, yeah, we can wipe our butts with newspapers as long as the newspaper says that we are the best.